Right, I wanted to do a video on the health problems that I have. I often get asked, what are the health conditions I've got, and what are the symptoms, and how do they affect me. So because I can't always remember all the names of everything, and it's sometimes difficult to explain things to people, I thought I'd do a quick video, and then it'll come in handy for the future when people need to know. I can just point them in the direction of the vid. So to start with, try and do it chronologically. In around 1996, I had an in-surgery diagnosis by my doctor at the time of carpal tunnel syndrome. The symptoms I was having at that point was pins and needles in my hands and fingers, and going up my arms, cramps in my hands, and he put it down to carpal tunnel syndrome. So I managed that myself, got special equipment to help me at work. I was kind of ambidextrous anyway, but I built on that and would swap my mouse between my left and right hand. If my right hand was particularly problematic, although it would take me longer, I can write with my left hand. So I would swap and use my left hand, wrist splints, that kind of thing. And I managed like that for around about 10 or 12 years. And then things started to get worse. I was starting to have other parts of my body affected. It wasn't just pins and needles, there were other things happening. And since my previous diagnosis, I had changed doctors. So I went to the doctor that I'd changed to, which is actually still my current doctor. And I was sent for a series of tests, blood tests, nerve conductivity tests, x-rays, that kind of thing, which resulted in a diagnosis of joint hypermobility syndrome. You'll have to excuse me, I have written stuff down to make sure that I hopefully include everything, and for other reasons that I'll explain as we go. So joint hypermobility syndrome was my diagnosis around about 2008. It is a hereditary connective tissue disorder resulting in, to a greater or lesser extent depending on severity and multiple other factors, hyperstretchy tendons and ligaments, joints that overextend, sublux, which is partial dislocation or full dislocation of joints, joint pain, early onset arthritis, poor balance and clumsiness, to name but a few. So it affects me on a day-to-day basis. I'm fortunate I don't dislocate. I do overextend my joints, and the clumsiness and balance, which they call proprioception, is an issue. So what happens is your body, I guess the connection between your body and your brain isn't quite tuned in properly. So my brain doesn't always necessarily know exactly where all my body is, so that affects my balance. I can stumble easily, I can overbalance. Excuse me. That kind of thing. The hypermobile part of it comes into play with being able to stretch joints in the wrong direction. I don't do it. It used to be a bit of a party trick. I don't do it so much now because it hurts. But if you put your hands together like that, and so that your hands are straight, and then push your hands backwards, so away from each other, like that. So if you can do that to some extent or other, then you're hypermobile. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up with hypermobility syndrome, but it's what used to be called double jointed. Fortunately, I don't dislocate, touch wood, though my joints do overextend. You know, my knees can go back on themselves, which can be very painful. You know, my fingers and arms and fingers and elbows and shoulder can be problematic, but I manage it such that I don't do things that I know have the potential to cause those sorts of problems. So that was around about 2010. I was still having various problems, so further investigations found during the course of 2010 resulted in further diagnosis. You'll have to forgive me if I say it wrong. Spondylolisthesis, and I'll put links and things to further information and stuff in the description for the video. This is where a bone of the lower part of the spine, in other words a vertebra, has slipped out of position and onto the bone below it. It's not a slipped disc, it's a slipped bone, a slipped vertebra. Mine is between the vertebra that are called S5 and L1. S5 is the last bone in the sacral, it's L5 and S1. L5 is the last bone in the lumbar region, and S1 is the first bone in the sacral region of the spine, if you want to look it up. So this results in lower back pain and tenderness in that area and around the pelvis generally. It means I can't walk very far, I can't stand for very long. What caused it? I don't really know. It could be argued that having fallen off a few horses in my time may have been a contributing factor. Whether or not it's related to bone disease or general degeneration, I haven't been told. To a certain extent, it really doesn't matter. I've got it, and that's this, as far as I know, nothing that can be done about it. My next diagnosis in 2010 was of fibromyalgia, which is a neurological or central nervous system illness that causes pain amplification in the brain. It can cause difficulty with sleeping, muscle pain, stiffness, and general tenderness throughout the whole body. It causes what's known as fibrofog, which isn't present all the time, necessarily. It can come on you, and it can be very difficult to speak, very difficult to think, very difficult to formulate sentences, and to find the right words. Generally, I can be fine, and then I'll start to throw in, or words will appear in sentences that are totally out of context. It doesn't click with me that I've said the wrong word until somebody looks a bit strangely at me because they've not understood what I've said because it was random. Or I struggle to find words, which you'll probably see perhaps through this video. Even though I've written stuff down as cues, I'm still having to form sentences on the fly, as it were, and that can cause me some problems when trying to find appropriate words. So that's fibromyalgia. The next diagnosis of 2010 was osteopenia. This is the early stages or a precursor to osteoporosis. In other words, I have an increased risk of developing osteoporosis, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I will develop osteoporosis. Basically what it is a lower than normal bone mineral density. In other words, I've got thinner bones than I should have for the age that I am. So that was 2010. In 2011, and I can't believe that it was that long ago, because it's now 2013, so it's 2 years ago since my last diagnosis. But anyway, in 2011, I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis, which you're probably aware affects the bones at the joint, causes pain and stiffness in joints, which consequently means I have difficulty moving around. The main places that I'm affected is my knees and my hips. So getting up and down is difficult, up and down stairs, in and out of chairs, in and out of the car, that kind of thing, moving around generally. And then my latest, although it was in 2011, diagnosis was of Hypoparathyroidism, which is a rare hormone disorder caused by parathyroid glands producing too little parathyroid hormone. We have 4 rice grain sized glands behind the thyroid gland, which produce hormone to help control levels of calcium, phosphorus and vitamin D within the blood and bones. And I have too little production of that hormone, which obviously results in problems with my bones, I guess, which refers back to previous conditions that I've got, perhaps the osteoarthritis and osteopenia, and even the spondylolisthesis, whatever it is as a result of the fact that I've not been producing enough parathyroid hormone for God knows how long. But anyway, some of the symptoms of that are pins and needles, particularly hands and feet, for me anyway, muscle twitching and cramps, get quite a lot of eye twitching, some abdominal muscle twitching, go through phases with cramps, because obviously I'm on medication now, so it's still being monitored, but it is settling down. Weird cramps in my toes and my feet and my hands, and general tiredness and irritability, but to be honest, that is one of the general consequences of all the various issues I have. Moving around with painful muscles and joints, that my body has to spend more energy in keeping in the right alignment due to the hypermobility, overbalancing, bumping into things, having to exert more effort in having conversations and speaking, because I use wrong words, which I have to try and spot or correct, or struggling to find words in the first place, my everyday life really, and it is very exhausting. It can be very exhausting. As a result, I often have to rest, or I'll drop off, when I'm supposed to be doing something else. So, those of you who are around me on occasion, if I use odd words, don't be too surprised. If I struggle to find words, bear in mind what I've said. And if I fall asleep while I'm talking to you, don't take offence. So yeah, I just thought I'd make the video to explain my conditions, and perhaps give you some signposts to get more information if you so wish. I think that's about it. I'll try and put some pictures in the video before I upload it, if I can, to sort of demonstrate what I've said about where the different things are and how they've affected me, if it's appropriate, or if it makes explanation of the issue clearer. So yeah, if I make any more videos and they don't make sense, although of course I'll try to make sure that doesn't happen during the editing process, you know, the finding words thing will probably be obvious if I do any further issues, and that's not really the sort of thing that you can edit out. So okay, thank you very much. Bye for now.